For all of our listeners, I want to welcome Jamie Suber, who is the interim Chief Executive Officer for the South Carolina Department of Employment Workforce, and Paul PFamolari, who is Deputy General Counsel for the South Carolina DO. Thank both of you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join. Cathy Rose Hicklin is sitting beside me. She's our go-to girl on just about everything, but there's a lot of, as y'all know, there's a lot of angst on what's going on. We're hopefully seeing we're on the downhill part of this virus, but just wanted to call on y'all and Cathy Rose, give us an update on kind of where you think we are and what we need to be doing, me from the congressional level and Cathy Rose from the implementation.
So I'll start off briefly and just give you the lay of the land in regards to what we've seen over these past 7 to 8 weeks, and how the federal programs have impacted us and impacted the state. And then I think we can talk a little bit more about what we see is on the horizon. Here we are talking about 7, 8 weeks, and close to 450,000 individuals have filed an unemployment insurance claim or entered into the unemployment insurance program. And we've paid close to $830 million in combined state and federal benefits. And that's huge. The volume is something that this state has never seen, and it has truly been a challenge. And we own the challenge. We own the fact that there's a great deal of individuals that are in need of assistance. We've continued to work tirelessly over these past 7 to 8 weeks to add additional staff, to look at different resources, to cross-train our staff, to try to satisfy the needs of the state. And that's been a challenge. We're a counter-cyclical agency. So when the economy is doing well and thriving, we're very, very small. And the federal dollars to support this agency and these programs are small as well. However, when things turn for the poor, turn for the bad, that's when we try to swell and try to grow quickly, rapidly, to try to, supply the demand on the system. And it's been a challenge. These programs have been technical by nature. We don't want to just throw bodies at it. We actually want individuals to be able to have knowledge and understanding to provide individuals with true resources and true resolution. One of the things that we've done over the past 7 weeks is focus primarily on resources and information and guidance. And we spend a lot of time putting that information out on our website, putting together step-by-step tutorials and guides so we can better educate individuals. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've experienced are first-time individuals coming into the program, just not knowledgeable of unemployment at all, very, very high levels of angst and frustration. And that has just been a challenge for them because we want to desperately help them. But again, a technical program by nature that was really, really not suited for everyone to come through. And that's really what we've been spending a lot of our time, is just helping individuals. And, with the volume of individuals that need that type of help, it's created a bottleneck in the process and slowed the normal churn and burn down because just the high volume of individuals that truly need our help. And again, I want to agree to the fact that we've seen our claim levels start to decline, but we know we still have significant work to do to help those that are in the gap in regards to unemployment assistance and then reemployment. So, Paul, you want to add on that?
Sure. What I always like to do is provide a little bit of perspective so that it's really clear just how monumental a challenge we've been facing over the last couple of months. Jamie mentioned that we've had about 450,000 people file a claim for unemployment insurance benefits over the last 7 to 8 weeks. Just to give you a sense of how historically unprecedented that is, in all of 2019, we had 120,000 people file for benefits for the whole year. The worst year of the Great Recession was 2009, and we had about 500,000 people come and file a claim for benefits during that entire year. We've almost hit that in 8 weeks. So it's been something truly unprecedented, because with the Great Recession, it was a slow and steady ramp up. So we kind of had the ability to staff up over time to meet that demand. Here we had that hit, and it was like flicking a light switch. All of a sudden we went from 2,000 initial claims a week to 30,000, then 60,000, then 85,000, just like that. And so it has been a tremendous challenge to go through and staff up appropriately, put people, hire people, reassign people, train them so that they can answer the kinds of questions that the public have, and provide them the assistance that they need to get their benefits claim flowing. So I really have always tried to emphasize that we are really in unprecedented times. And our hope, as Jamie mentioned, we've got claims going down per week, but they're still really astronomically high by historical standards, even though they feel like a relief from the peak of a few weeks ago. So, we have to continue to staff up and provide the assistance to folks, because we really don't know how long we're going to be dealing with this volume. So we've had 450,000 people file an initial claim. The next big question is, how many weeks are they going to be filing individual weekly claims for? And the longer that goes on, the longer people file, the bigger the strain on both the state's trust fund and also on our administrative ability. As Jamie mentioned, we're funded almost 100% from the federal government for our administrative expenses. Well, if we've spiked and we have to staff up accordingly, we're going to run into some money issues on that end as well at some point.
And gentlemen, if you can also talk about staffing up, I applaud all of the efforts of South Carolina do. You want to talk about how you've increased your hours and also your staff people down there. And I know for a fact, because when it was at its height at 85, 90,000 people a week, we were both working on weekends almost around the clock to get these people needs and applications taken care of. Y'all did a tremendous job, but I want to talk about your hours and staffing a little bit.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit to that, and that's a very good point and a significant challenge. I think when we really realized the magnitude and the impact of this pandemic, we had averaged close to 45 to 50 dedicated customer service representatives answering calls on a weekly basis. So 45 to 50 dedicated representatives. And at the time, I think we were hovering around 13,000 to 14,000 continued weeks. And I think on average, we were bringing in right around 1,500 to 2,000 new claims per week. And that type of staffing level could handle the inquiries coming into the system. However, over the past 6 to 7 weeks, we've gone from 50 to 45 to 50 dedicated customer service reps to well over 600. So now we have 600 representatives that are answering phone calls. We're continuing to work with them and train them so they can not just pass through and transfer calls, but actually provide some type of resolution. And obviously that being a challenge to actually add bodies, but not just add them with purpose and continue to train them and develop them, because the majority of our inquiries are about status, or what about me, or what does this mean? And when you're just reading FAQs or providing general answers to individuals, there's no sense of comfort or relief that their problem is going to be resolved. So instead of us just bulking up staff at the lowest level, we've been spending a great deal of time training those individuals. So when they actually do speak to someone, they can actually bring that type of resolution. So now when you talk about claims, you actually have to think about the flow of the work. So not only do we have to deal with the entry point being the phones, we actually have to talk about staffing associated with the workers, the staff that's dedicated to make sure that those claims are processed timely. And then what happens when individuals are denied and they do not receive benefits and they appeal their decisions? That workflow goes from the phone to the processing of the claim to the appeals department. So there's a significant flow of work, and we have to staff up in all those areas to ensure that we can support the taxing on the system. And that's just understanding unemployment and understanding that that's where we have to make sure that we're adding resources throughout the pipeline.
Yeah. And also, Jamie, about 4 weeks ago, you gave a wonderful explanation of application from start to finish, and you, moreover, put parameters to the application process. Could you walk us through that again for those persons who are just now filing for unemployment?
So Yes, Kathy, and that's good. I think we really spoke about what to expect in the claim filing experience and, you know, how to start that process. And really what I spoke to was really filing an initial claim or going onto the website and actually starting that process is step one. So you want to go out there and you want to file for unemployment. And, you know, this was kind of geared to the 1099, the self-employed, the gig workers, and they really were asked to go and file for a UI claim. However, the UI system was really not geared for them because they're not contributing into that system. And I think what we heard from that industry was how clunky the system was, how difficult the questions were to answer. And that was really, you know, a hard process of, you know, going in and completing that initial claim in 20 to 25 minutes. And that was really what we were asking out of everyone, whether you were going to be qualified under regular UI or we were looking to potentially, you know, deny you for regular UI, but prepare you for a federal program in which you may be eligible for. So that was the bulk of our education on the initial claims filing process is go out there and file. Some of you will be monetarily ineligible, meaning you will be denied benefits. Some of you may be eligible for a regular UI. For those that were really 1099 gig workers to self-employed, we understood that they would be denied. However, we were working very hard to push out the pandemic unemployment assistance program, which we did. And we pushed that out on April 24th. And those individuals, we had captured all that information from them. And we were able to update a link out there and allow them to go out there and apply for the PUA program, which was more geared to them. And the questions actually made more sense. And they were able to go out there and navigate that system very easily. I think one of the challenges is when the programs came out and we received guidance of March 27th, I think everyone heard that they will be eligible. And that was part of the story. But behind the eligibility is the process and understanding how we as a state workforce agency is challenged to implement some of these federal programs. And there's two prongs associated with that. The eligibility of the program for the individuals, but also the execution and the implementation. We had to actually configure our system to comply with some of the guidance that we received. And then we had to wait on the guidance in regards to how we're going to execute the program, as well as wait on federal funds to be able to fund the program. So that's kind of how that process was working. But again, everyone heard, I'm going to be eligible. When am I going to be eligible? And normally the claim filing process takes up to 21 days for us to determine eligibility. However, if you have been denied eligibility under regular UI and you're rolling into a federal program, it's almost as if that clock starts again. Now, we tried as much as we can to expedite the timeliness from rolling out of one program into another, but we really, really needed that time. And I just think that hearing I'm eligible, individuals were filing on Monday and calling us on Monday afternoon, filing on Tuesday and calling on Thursday. And we really had not had the appropriate amount of time to work through the processing of the claim. So, you know, Kathy, I hope I answered your question, but really I kind of want to speak to the whole process in regards to how we receive that work, how we process it in order to give individuals eligibility.
No, and absolutely. And I wanted to highlight again and underscore, and correct me if I'm wrong. So in other words, I do not remember a time in my lifetime where self-employed persons have been eligible for unemployment. So the federal program we are now under is completely new, and the state computer program is not set up, or was not set up, to receive these applicants. So it was, but wanting to serve them and be in adjustment or whatever with state and federal law, you had to pretty much build this system as you were trying to get unemployment out the door.
Correct.
And so that's why we received, as I'm sure y'all did, so many calls saying I'm ineligible, and we would say that's okay, because the program is not written for 1099 self-employed persons. Just go ahead and apply. And when it comes out, April 24th, 25th, we'll go from there. And you will be captured, and then it will start. If you could talk about the different programs, Paul, maybe that's more legal, and
Sure.
and when they started.
Okay, sure. So first and foremost, there is always the regular state unemployment insurance program. That is the default program in every state, and that's the first stop in our process. That program is available for employees, covered employees in the state of South Carolina who meet certain initial monetary requirements. So they had to have had a sufficient attachment to the job market. They had been employed over a period of time and earned a certain amount of wages. And then they have to have been unemployed through no fault of their own. And then every week they have to be able to work and available to work and actively seeking work. So that's always the first stop.
And Paul, I'm going to stop you right here and break it down even more. So when you say wages, you're talking about people who normally get a W-2 in January. You're talking W-2 employees, hourly or wage or salary, but W-2s.
Exactly.
Those are the persons, first and foremost, who are eligible because their employers pay state unemployment tax, correct?
Exactly right. That is exactly right. These are for your regular employees working at Target, Walmart, every other normal employment situation where you get your W-2 in January and file your taxes based on that. That's who the regular state UI program is for. And if you're eligible under that program, you're going to follow through on that program. Okay. So then after the UI program, there came the federal assistance programs from the CARES Act. And the first one that we implemented in South Carolina was the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program. And that was the additional $600 federal payment per week to everyone who is eligible to receive state UI or any of the federal unemployment insurance programs. So we implemented that one in early April, and we've been paying that one out ever since. And that's $600 a week to everyone who is eligible to receive at least a single dollar of state UI or any of the other federal unemployment insurance programs. Next up is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That's PUA. And as Jamie mentioned, we went live with that on April 24th. And I believe South Carolina was one of the first 12 or 15 states in the country to have their PUA program up and running. So we're proud of that accomplishment. And that is primarily for your self-employed, 1099 independent contractors, gig economy workers, or anyone else who is not eligible for regular state unemployment insurance benefits. So it could be an employee who just didn't meet the monetary threshold to have a valid unemployment insurance claim. It's really the last stop for people who are affected by the pandemic. But what's key about the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program is you have to be unemployed, unable to work, or unavailable to work as a direct result of one of about 10 COVID-19 specific criteria that are spelled out in the federal statute. So those are things like you were unable to work because you contracted COVID and you were quarantined for 14 days, 21 days, or you were potentially exposed and your healthcare provider advised you to quarantine, or you may be at risk because you have an autoimmune disorder and your doctor has told you you need to quarantine, or your employer's business site closed down because of a stay-at-home or stay-at-work order or something along those lines. Those are the kinds of criteria that would allow you to receive benefits under that program. And then the last significant federal program, and this is the last one that we are currently working on implementing in South Carolina, is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, PEUC. And that will provide an additional 13 weeks of federally funded benefits to people who exhaust their regular state UI claim. So in South Carolina, people are eligible to receive 20 full weeks of state unemployment insurance benefits. Once you exhaust that, then you would be eligible to receive 13 additional weeks of PEUC benefits. And that is effective from the week ending April 4th through the week ending December 26th. of 2020, and we're working feverishly to get that program up and running here as well. And that will soon be available to provide assistance to people who are eligible for a regular unemployment insurance claim, but may have drawn out all of the benefits that they were entitled to receive under that program.
So can we drill down into the weeds a little bit more? And these are some of the questions I'm getting, and I know y'all have been getting. Paul, you mentioned the eligibility. One of the requirements was by no fault of your own. And I have learned, having to work with unemployment, one needs to be very specific in how one is separated from their job. So if one is fired, traditionally, one is not eligible for unemployment benefits. Is that correct?
That's correct. So in South Carolina, unemployment benefits are for those who are unemployed through no fault of their own. And if you are terminated because your employer caught you taking money from the register, or you were violating company policies, or you were violating their attendance policies, things like that, then you're going to be disqualified from receiving unemployment insurance benefits for a period of time. It could be anywhere from 5 weeks to the full 20 weeks, depending on the severity of your conduct that led to your separation. Also, if you were to voluntarily quit employment without good cause connected to your employment, then you're likely going to be indefinitely disqualified from benefits as well. Because in South Carolina, the program is intended to provide support to people who are involuntarily unemployed. So generally, if you're voluntarily choosing to leave your employment, it's a pretty high bar to establish that you had good cause for doing so, such that you would then be eligible to receive benefits.
And Paul, you just hit upon a topic I have had numerous questions about, and I do not know the answer. People will call in and they are either concerned about their own health. They may have an at-risk condition, or they may have a child or a parent or some other loved one in their home who is also at risk. And they don't know what to do. They really need their job. They need the income, but at the same time, they don't want to put themselves or either someone they take care of at risk. How does one navigate that?
So that's a very tricky thing, and it involves the interplay between the regular unemployment insurance program and then the PUA program. So in South Carolina, as a general rule, if you quit your employment because of some personal reason, you're not going to be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits because it's not attributable to your employment. If the terms and conditions of your employment have not changed, your employer is continuing to have available work for you, same hours, same pay, same responsibilities, none of that has changed, then generally you're not going to be eligible to receive benefits if you leave that employment for a personal reason. However, the federal pandemic unemployment assistance program might provide benefits to someone who has been advised by their doctor, and I think the wording of the statute is advised by a healthcare provider, that they need to quarantine due to a personal health condition, like they have an autoimmune disorder, or if they're providing care for a family member who has contracted COVID. So it's very specific though, and so people need to really closely look at what those criteria are, because a generalized fear of contracting coronavirus on your job site is not sufficient to receive benefits under either state unemployment insurance or under the PUA program. So people really do need to take a close look so that they don't inadvertently quit their employment and then have no benefits available to them.
You want to repeat that again? I think that was a very important statement about.
Sure. So generalized fear of contracting coronavirus by reporting to your job site is generally not going to be a sufficient cause for leaving your employment, and you would not be eligible for regular state unemployment insurance benefits or the federal pandemic unemployment assistance program. Federal United States Department of Labor has repeatedly issued guidance that generalized fear is not a criteria for receiving PUA. So if you're quitting your employment because you are afraid that you might contract it because you're dealing with customers, that's not going to meet the threshold to receive benefits under that program, nor would it under the state unemployment insurance system. I do want to emphasize, though, that while, for folks who are concerned, there are other avenues that they can explore if they feel that their employer is not sufficiently protecting the workplace. They can contact OSHA or some other appropriate regulatory entity. But for unemployment insurance benefits, a general fear is not going to be good enough to get benefits.
Great, thank you so much. That clears up a lot. Another question I've been getting much of the time is for young people who have worked, but they're still in college, or they have graduated, and they're telling me I'm not eligible for unemployment.
So that, under state unemployment insurance, full-time students are generally not eligible to receive unemployment insurance benefits because they're not attached to the labor market in the way that the benefit program is intended for, because they're a full-time student. That's their primary occupation. And they're therefore they don't meet the state's definition of being able and available to work, even if they may have held a part-time job. So that's one consideration. The other consideration with students is, even when they're working part-time jobs, they generally don't make enough money to qualify monetarily for a regular state unemployment insurance claim. And so they would not be eligible for that reason as well. However, the federal pandemic unemployment assistance program does not have those restrictions.
Okay.
And if you are a student and you had a part-time job, working at the ice cream shop or whatever the case may be, and your business, your employer closes because of COVID, then you would be eligible to receive the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits for those weeks that you met that criteria.
Okay.
Because the federal program does not impose those restrictions.
And Jamie and I have dealt with this, I know at least 4 times over the last week, which leads us into persons also need to understand underemployment. They may have had their hours reduced. And for lack of a better word, gentlemen, in my mind, the 326 is the max one can receive from state unemployment. So one has to be eligible in order to receive part or all of the 326 in order to receive the $600 in federal, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but if employers to implement social distancing have their employees come in, say, for 20 hours a week, and they are making, let's just say for number's sake, $20 an hour, then their gross is going to be $400. And so therefore, hopefully, help me gentlemen with this math, so therefore they do not qualify for state benefits and therefore do not qualify for federal.
Correct.
Is that right?
That is correct. In South Carolina, you have to be unemployed during a week in order to receive benefits. The state statutory definition of unemployed is someone who doesn't work at all, so that's easy. You don't work at all, you don't earn any wages, that solidly meets the definition of unemployed. Also included in the definition of unemployed is someone who works less than full-time and earns less than whatever their weekly benefit amount is.
Okay.
And full-time is defined as 29 hours, as more than 29 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're working 29 hours or less and earn less than whatever your weekly benefit amount is, then you meet the state's definition of unemployed and you would be eligible to receive unemployment insurance benefits. Your weekly benefit amount may be reduced depending on the wages that you earned, but you would still receive some amount of your weekly benefit amount, and that would then enable you to receive the $600 as well. But if you work more than 29 hours or you earn more than your weekly benefit amount, you do not meet the statutory definition of unemployed and therefore cannot receive unemployment benefits under either state or federal programs.
So let's go back to that. And I have some people who are self-employed. And let's first of all talk about the process where one certifies. Can one of y'all walk us through how one has to certify each week in order to receive benefits and how crucial that is?
Yeah, good point, Cathy. And this is something that we've tried to emphasize over the last few weeks is, filing the initial claim is the first step in the process. But additionally, the responsibility of the individual that filed, they need to go back into their portal and certify on a weekly basis that they're still unemployed, they're still able and available to work, and report any earnings that they may have had during that period of time. So that's still the responsibility of the individual that had filed. And the week runs, from Sunday to Saturday. So they should be able to go back in and certify each week. And the sooner they certify, that's really our notification to release payment to them.
Okay, so I've been encouraging them to go back into their portal by midnight, Sunday night, and certify that they either haven't worked or, like any government agency, if you have a change in financial status, you have to let that government agency know. So a person calls in and they have made, say, $100 that week. They're self-employed. When they go in to certify, there's $100, but they would still qualify for underemployment, correct?
Yes, if that $100 was less than what their weekly benefit amount is, and under the PUA program, the minimum in South Carolina is $131. So yes, that person would be eligible to receive partial PUA benefits for that week, and then the additional $600.
And so talking about that, when we first started seeing checks come out for the self-employed, everybody's, what is the $131? What is the 100? I see both of you shaking your heads. Yes, we've gotten this question. Can we explain that $131?
Sure. So the federal program establishes the minimum amount that someone can receive under PUA. And DOL for South Carolina has established that as $131 per week. So that's the minimum. And in order to process the PUA payments as quickly as possible once we were up and running, we set everyone at the minimum so that they could get paid quickly. And what people can do is they can provide us with proof of their income or proof of their wages at any time. And we will evaluate that and then recalculate their weekly benefit amount accordingly. So we set that up to get this program up and running fast and getting these benefits in the hands of the people who desperately needed them as fast as possible. But if they've got proof that actually, I think I earned way more than that and my weekly benefit amount under the PUA program should be $300 or $326, provide us that proof. We'll take a look and we'll calculate it accordingly. And if it should be higher, you'll be compensated accordingly.
And for those are demonstrating proof of income, that could be your 1099. Can they use a Schedule C?
Yes.
On their tax return?
Yes.
What about a Schedule E?
Yes. We will take anything that they have. We prefer their most recent federal tax return, including the schedules. That gives us the clearest sense, but we recognize with the federal extensions that a lot of people haven't filed their 2019 and their 2018 return may not be reflective of what they were actually earning. So we're willing to work with people and take a look at whatever proof that they provide. But yes, your federal tax returns are your best bet. We can look at bank statements. We can look at other evidence that you have.
And then another question I get quite often and is someone has, let's say, been unemployed in, let's say, June of 2019, and they received benefits. And now they got another job, new job, and they've worked from October, November, until they were laid off due to the COVID. And they're telling me, well, I can't get benefits because I haven't passed my anniversary date. I didn't know if this was waived under the rules of the COVID or if it was still in place. I need to understand that.
Sure. So what you're referring to is what's called a benefit year. And when you come in and file a claim for benefits, that establishes your benefit year. And it's always the Sunday before the day that you filed. So if you came in and filed today, your benefit year begins on May 10th and would go on for a year until May 9th of next year. So in your scenario, if someone came in and lost their job in, let's call it July of 2019, they filed a claim for benefits, they drew benefits, they exhausted the benefits they were eligible to receive, went back to work, and were working consistently, and then lost their job in March because of COVID, well, they're still in their benefit year, and they aren't eligible to receive, ordinarily, they're not eligible to receive any more benefits until their benefit year ends this coming July. The federal PEUC program that I mentioned earlier that we're working on implementing is designed to address those people. So if you exhausted your claim for benefits at any point from, I believe it's July 1st of last year, but I'm not positive. It's either July 1st or July 31st. So don't hold me to that, but it's sometime around that time. If you exhausted your claim for benefits on or after that date, then the PEUC program is going to be available to you once we have that up and running. And that program will cover weeks of unemployment beginning with the week ending April 4th, 2020 through the week ending December 26th. So in your example, if that person was laid off in mid-March, they may be eligible to receive benefits under the PUA program for a few weeks until the PEUC program becomes effective. But
No, that's great. That is perfect information. That clears up a lot. And Paul or Jamie, when do y'all see that I can't ever get those initials correct in the correct order. When do you see that coming out? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe, or longer?
We're setting a goal for 2 more weeks. I think what we tentatively put out there is it would be, no earlier than May 22nd. So I think we're trying hard to get it done, but I guess, additional information will be forthcoming, but individuals are already asking about it. They understand that it is a provision, and we're doing all we can to comply and configure the system so we can implement that program as well.
Okay. Gentlemen,
let me ask this, Kat. While we're talking about money, Jamie, Paul, who's keeping an eye on if we had 120,000 total in 2019 filed for unemployment, we're up to, what did y'all say,
450,000.
450,000, and we're in the 5th month. Who's keeping an eye on the till? I know it's federal dollars, but at some point, either it gets replenished or who's
good.
Who's
that's good. And the trust fund, the solvency of the state is something we look at daily. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. The regular UI benefits versus the federal money, that's something that we continue to evaluate and continue to look at. Some of the regulations that were passed allowed for us to recoup some money back into the trust fund, and those are efforts that we're taking, as well as we're just wrapping up a quarterly period where employers have contributed. Looking at that as well, hard and forecast where we're going to be, but we continue to monitor daily. We're still hovering over 900 million in the trust fund, but at this rate, this type of rate, Representative Norman, this is the challenge for us to continue to look at how long individuals stay on unemployment, because that's really going to be the focus of, if individuals are not going back into employment and they're staying unemployed, that is going to drain the balance of what we have left in that trust fund.
And how much has been paid out so far?
Out of all programs, we're around 830 million, but I can get the specific to unemployment insurance out of regular unemployment. I can get that to you if you're interested in that amount.
I would be interested. You know, one of the things that Congress is talking about is having a moratorium on the payroll tax, which is going to affect every program in South. It's going to affect every program all over the country.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, I'd be very interested in that.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's where your state funding comes from, and it's a domino or cyclic in that if these businesses do not open back up and pay into payroll tax to fund the unemployment fund.
Right.
You got a problem.
You can see where this goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So,
And there are some reports that we're looking at and putting together. So I'll work very closely with Mark and see if he can provide you with some of that financial information that we've already put together.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah. To follow up, I'm trying to, Jamie, you mentioned forecasting. I'm looking at the weeks ahead, and on Monday the 18th, I believe, hair salons, gig operators, contract barbershops, et cetera, are opening. So some persons I'm dealing with have not yet received their unemployment from being self-employed. But so this Sunday, talking about certifying, they will go in and they'll certify that they don't have any funds, or excuse me, they don't have any income, if you will. But then a week from this coming Sunday, they will go in and they will have to put in a dollar amount. And either they will be eligible or not eligible to receive funds. But the big question I'm getting from especially hairstylists, barbers, are what about my back pay? What about the money I was supposed to be getting?
That's good. And again, I know that there is a delta of individuals that may not have received benefits, or we may not have finalized the processing of their claim. But if benefits are due to them, we will award those benefits to them retroactively. And that is something that we've tried to communicate. But we want the integrity of the program to be upheld as well. So as soon as they start earning and as soon as they start working, we just ask that they, report that to us so we understand what they may be due, or, some individuals will probably stop filing altogether.
Right. Yes, that'd be great. Do you gentlemen have any words of wisdom which could make the applicants an easier process, or what do you see, or what can I do to help y'all?
Paul.
I think continuing to be a liaison for us. I know that your office, as well as the rest of the federal delegation and all of our state delegation, have been fielding a ton of calls from constituents and have been funneling those through into our staff. Mark Hendrick in particular has been a great focal point for us in working with our legislators. And having events like this, and I know Jamie and I and a number of other folks with DO have done a number of these. I think we're well over 40, 50 of these at this point. And providing this information to you all so that you're able to then provide that to your constituents who reach out directly, I think has been tremendously beneficial to us as we're working through all of the issues that we're working through, and to provide this information to the public. So I really do want to convey how much we appreciate that and your willingness to work with us, and also to flag issues that need our direct attention. I think that's been incredibly helpful over the last 8 weeks.
Well, I applaud all of your efforts. Everyone down there has been extremely professional, very, very timely in their response, and they have reached out, and even the constituents of Congressman Norman have been very grateful at their kindness and their thoughtfulness and the time that they have actually spent with the person helping them, as Jamie spoke to earlier, feel comfortable and deal with their personal issue with unemployment. I thank y'all very, very much.
I do too. I mean, it's been a good learning experience, and the best description I've heard is it's like building an airplane and taking off at the same time. And y'all handled it. And as Cathy Rose said, the people that call our office, they're upset, they're fearful, and your office has made it a lot easier to, to bridge and help them on those type issues. Well, as we wrap up, Jamie Suber, I want to thank you. Paul, PFamolari, thank y'all for what you're doing. And reach out to us, anything we can help you with. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.